hope you're doing well. Before anything else, I would like to just thank you for joining me again for another message in here. I hope the messages are helping you somehow in one way or another. So this video would just be sort of a continuation of the last video that I made, which is your spiritual self. And in here, I'm going to be discussing further about it and sort of, well, talking about something which we do on a regular basis. And for most of us, that is work. And sometimes when we think about work, we think about, well, sometimes we're tired, which is understandable if we really have to exert that much effort in the job that we're doing. Um, but also part of the effort we're exerting is when we feel that our jobs are unimportant or boring even. Some of us have been in the same jobs for a very long time already, or even if we haven't been in the same job for a long time, if it is something that is sort of like a routine, then we can sort of get bored with it and not happy about our work. So in here, what I would like to impart with you is something that could be something that we can do about it. It's all in a matter of just a matter of perspective of how we look at it, and it has something to do with working more from our spiritual selves than working from our physical selves. So in the last video that I made, I was, if you haven't watched it, I was talking about exactly that, about us acting more from ourselves as spiritual beings rather than physical beings. So what do I mean by this? So let me just give you an example. For example, you're a cashier and all you do all day is just to get payment and make change, get payment and make change, and that occupies the 8 hours work or 10 hours of work. But well, let's say you are a cashier in a hardware store, and if it's not a busy hardware store, then there isn't even much activity, so it's easy for you to get bored. Or even if you're a sales lady in a hardware store, so all you do, or a salesman in a hardware store, all you do is to prepare a checklist. So 10 kilos of nails, 5 gallons of paint, hollow blocks, 10 boxes of tiles, stuff like that. Okay? But if you look at it, it's more than, what you are doing is more than just delivering the materials, preparing a checklist, getting payment, and making change. Because these materials are used to build houses. Houses where families gather around for special occasions, where they celebrate birthdays, where babies are born, and all these other exciting stuff. And they can't do that without the house, and the house can't be built without the materials, and the materials will not be be used to build these houses. First and foremost, if you were not there to give out these materials, just by doing the routinary or the you think unimportant or the boring job that you do. So if you look at your job from a spiritual sense, more from a spiritual perspective, then you might see that it's more than just, the things that you do mechanically, but it's more about being part of these people, these stories, other people's stories also. Okay, so I hope by now you're starting to get the picture. Um, I for one, I'm starting to get interested about this. Actually, I had the idea some time ago, and I really wanted to put it out there. So, okay. For example, also, you're working as a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant. So, you might just see it as serving food, um, all day long, getting tired, coming home, uninspired. But what you actually did that day was be part of other people's stories. And if you did your job very well, then these stories would have been made more pleasant. What do I mean? For example, who walks in a restaurant, it might be it might be a mom who's busy with career, who doesn't have time to cook for her kids anymore, and so she just um, goes to the restaurant with her kids. So what you actually did is help relieve her of the stress, of cooking a meal, and besides that, you were also part of the mom spending more time with her kids rather than doing all the jobs at home, and then they're not even talking anymore because everybody is tired and they have to sleep. Okay. Who else walks into a restaurant? Okay, let's make this a little more colorful. So, who knows that as you were preparing the order, as you were giving the order, with well, you could smile a little also, just to create a pleasant ambience or atmosphere in a restaurant. And who knows, the people you might be serving happen to be uh, a guy and a girl, where the guy is about to propose to his girlfriend. Now, if you do your job well, instead of them being kind of irritated that their order is not arriving anymore, then it would create a more conducive atmosphere for talking, and maybe after that one, after the date, the girl would say yes to the guy, something like that. And well, all of these other things, I think you get what I mean by now already. And all you need is a little imagination, which is actually part of stories that are not imagined. These stories happen every day, and you are part of those stories. And so, if you do your job well, then where your job ends is where another story begins. And if you look at it, if you can see how, in a small way, you are contributing to making their stories a little bit more um more memorable, then that is working from your spiritual self already. So, as I discussed in the other video, it's more about what can I do to help. Actually, you might already be helping. You are just not aware that you are doing what you are actually doing, more than what you see. Okay. Well, I hope you get what I mean. I know you do. I know you do. Okay. Another. Okay. One last. Back when I was with the local YMCA, I used to be with the board of directors for a couple of years. Some time ago, one of the people I most admired and whom I most respected happened to be a middle-aged man who was working as a janitor. When you're a janitor, you're the least thanked of all the workers, because sometimes we even make the mistake of looking down on people with jobs that we think are not as important as ours. But then without them, we can just as easily do our jobs. Because if you work, for example, as an accountant, or you work in the office, and your environment is dirty and you still need to clean, well, you cannot really expect to be doing your job, which is not which is doing something in line with your profession. If you still need to be the one to be sweeping the floor and stuff like that. Okay, so there. Anyway, going back to my story. You know, this guy, this man, which I really really admired. He would greet everybody with a nod and with respect. And I would just like to point out that like this video. Okay. I would just like to point out that that is exactly how that is exactly how we become more respectable if we know how to respect other people. So looking at other jobs, even well, menial jobs, from a spiritual our spiritual selves, from a spiritual sense, would make us see how important that job is, and no job is really not unimportant or boring or um, inferior to ours. So things like that. So I guess this really this could really help in helping us being more inspired about the things we do, or being more understanding of what other people are doing. Going back to the janitors also, well, they are the reason why the floors aren't slippery and our kids are not running around and having accidents. And they also keep us from being in an unhealthy environment where we can all get sick. So we really never realize these things if we don't try to understand things from our spiritual nature. So there. So um for now, that is all I have for you. I hope this has helped. So for everybody watching, maybe try to consciously work more from our spiritual selves than from our physical selves, and thus inspire ourselves to just keep going and doing our daily tasks in a more meaningful way. So there. Okay. Happy weekend to everyone. And as I always say, find your strength, find your peace, find God, and nurture your spiritual selves. Take care, guys. Until next video. Thank you for bearing with me.